And welcome to another episode of the Carrie Roldan Show and Business BFF podcast. I am so excited for today. So I guess I should tell you, I'm your host, Carrie Roldan. I'm a wife, a mother, a runner, a best-selling author, a personal growth junkie, and your total business BFF. And like I said, I'm so excited about today because I'm interviewing someone who I've been dying to know / interview this person since I first read her book. I think it was almost 2 years ago. It was at least a year and a half ago. And since that time, we've been like connected over the internet and sort of connected through other people, but have never actually met or had a conversation. So I am so excited to dive in today with someone who I consider my friend, even though we're just meeting, and that is Dana Ayers. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Dana is the author of the #1 bestseller, Confessions of an Unlikely Runner, a guide to racing and obstacle courses for the averagely fit and halfway dedicated. I love that title so much. She's a former White House staffer and a current consultant and military reservist. Dana shares personal and humorous tales of going after her unlikely goals as a way of encouraging others to go after theirs. And today, Dana and I are going to be talking about how being authentic can inspire others and, possibly even make you a best-selling author. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. Dana, I'm so excited to meet you and have you here live. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's so nice to find you.
And your audio is just a little bit, you're just a little bit frozen. So, okay. Oh, there you are. All right. I was going to say we may have a slight delay, but you're back. Okay, Dana. So I read your book. I actually met you through someone I knew was trying to help you promote your book. And I saw something online and there was just something about like, oh, this woman seems genuine. And your book was about running. And so I just started telling everyone I knew about it before I even read it. And then I read it and I really started telling everyone I knew about it because it was so real. It was so authentic. And it was so all the stuff that maybe we runners don't talk about, but like the real stuff about being a runner. So anyways, what happened when I did that was sort of how we got introduced to each other. Is you saw that I was helping promote your book and we started paying attention to each other. But I actually don't know a whole lot about you. So would you mind, before we dive into everything else, telling me just a little bit about your background? I introduced you as a consultant, but like, how did you get to where you are and what kind of consulting do you do?
Sure. So my background is I came to DC in college. I did like a semester in DC and it was half class, half internship. And my internship ended up at the White House. So that started my career path into the Bush administration because I stayed and became a staffer full time after that. So I worked in the Bush administration at the White House and Homeland Security for about 5 years and then left to be a government consultant. So that's when I became a consultant. I've been at the same company for 11 years. But while I was at the White House, I am not athletic and I never ran track and field or anything like that. But President Bush is a avid runner. So he made a 5K race just for staff. So there were only about 200 people. Secret Service agents with the president, the first lady, Condoleezza Rice. How can you say no to that? Even though I never ran a race before, it was kind of like, well, FOMO is too strong. So I had to do it. And that was my first race and it kind of just took off from there. So I kept doing races and still don't feel like a real runner sometimes because I'm not consistent and I don't look like a runner. I'm slow, but I finished all kinds of races and I felt like I have funny stories, but I also have stories that can encourage other people who feel like me, where they want to take something on, but they're a little hesitant. They feel like they don't fit the mold. And I really do think that if I can finish races, anybody can. So that's kind of how the book came about.
Oh, I love that you said you have funny stories. But I just want you, like, I hope you know this already, but you are funny. Like, not just that you have funny stories, but you are funny. So that's one of the things that I loved about Confessions of an Unlikely Runner is like I would sit in bed with my husband at night reading the book, and I would get kicked out because he was trying to sleep and I was like laughing so hard I was snorting or like shaking the bed. It is a really, really funny read. Okay, so I want to know about you're welcome. I want to know about being a government consultant, actually, before we dive into being authentic and running. Like we sort of have these three topics that are, well, being a government consultant, actually, my audience is much more entrepreneurs, and yet a lot of them consider themselves consultants. So when you said that you've been working for the same firm, you are, what does that mean in terms of being are you an independent contractor, or is this an independent consulting firm that talks to people in government?
No, it's a large company. It's about almost 25,000 employees at my company. And so I work for them, and then I get farmed out to government clients, and I sit on projects anywhere from a couple months to maybe a couple years. So most of my clients have been Homeland Security because I was there as a Fed, so it made sense. I already knew the agency, and I kind of advise clients on strategic communication. So that's kind of how my life, I feel like there's three careers that I'm juggling all the time, and it's my consulting career, my writing author career, and then my Navy career. And the thread that ties them all together is storytelling, because I'm doing communications for my government clients, and I'm also a public affairs officer in the Navy Reserve, so I do storytelling for them as well. So that's kind of what ties it all together for me, and that's been helpful because I kind of learned things in each of them that I can use in the other ones.
And how long did it take you to realize that the thread that tied all of them together was storytelling?
I mean, I guess I realized it pretty quickly, especially with the Navy, because I'm telling the Navy story. That's my job there. And then for clients, yeah, I guess after I started writing more and knowing that I love storytelling, and then the more I learned about communications, I just realized the power of storytelling in any situation. So even if it's something that looks maybe not that interesting from the outside, it's just a straightforward policy that a government agency is trying to explain to the public. If you can use storytelling, it makes it a lot easier to get across and resonate with people. So I feel like that's one of my strengths that I could use in all three areas.
Beautifully said. So the reason I asked the question is because I think so many entrepreneurs have various aspects of their life or their business, and they have trouble finding the thread that ties them all together, right? They think that I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and don't recognize that there's a commonality that goes through them. So thank you for sharing that. And now I'm really dying to know about the process of writing this book, right? I titled this show about how being authentic can inspire others. And I'm super passionate about that. One of the things that I do in my business is actually help lift up authentic leaders, help people find their, authentic voice and kind of stand in their truth and lead their life and their business from that place. And I saw so much of that in Confessions of an Unlikely Runner. And I see it. I follow you on Facebook as well. And I see it in every single post and that's why I feel like I know you, right? Is because you're so good at being leading from this authentic place. So can you tell me just a little bit about the process of writing that book? Because I love the subtitle, right? Like you're very real. This is a guide to racing and obstacle courses for the averagely fit and halfway dedicated. I love that.
Thank you. I worked hard on that title with actually a consulting, my boss at the time and my consulting company. So that was another way that my worlds feed into each other. But yeah, I think it honestly, writing for me started because of Facebook, and I was kind of sharing. I think I'm one of those people that weird or dumb stuff just kind of happens to or near. And so I guess I just wanted to share that kind of stuff. And so I started just posting on Facebook, and then people were saying, well, if you had a blog, I would read it, or you should write a book one day. So that's kind of how the seed was planted. I never set out to write a book necessarily. It just kind of was suggested along the way. So I started a blog and realized I really enjoyed telling the stories of what was happening to me and seeing other people either laugh about it or resonate with it. And then it was introduced to a publisher, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should try to write a book. And that's kind of how it came about. But yeah, I think being authentic is, I don't know, it comes naturally for me, but I also think it's so important to resonate with other people, because if you don't put something personal in there, it's really hard to catch people's attention because they don't see something real there, and they don't see themselves there either.
Yes, which is why we all fall in love. Everyone needs to read this book, by the way. You can see Dana has a copy behind her. I was telling her before I was looking for my copy of your book because I loved it so much. I was like going through my shelves looking for the copy of it, and then I realized I'd given it away. So I'm so glad that you have a copy behind you. You can see it. It's the best. It's just the best. You guys have to read it. If you're a runner, if you're not a runner, if you're an entrepreneur, like one of the things that I love, I feel like running and entrepreneurship, being an athlete in general, but especially running, has so much to do with being an entrepreneur, in the sense that, right, there's highs and lows and ups and downs, and there's days that you feel good and there's days that you don't, right? But it's all about forward progress. And I guess I got sidetracked when I was talking about that. So I want to talk to you about this whole idea of authenticity, though, and stepping into sort of a leadership role, because now that you are a best-selling author, actually, tell me about that process before we go into being a leader. How did that work out that you became a best, right? You had written this book that was full of just authentic, real, fun stories. How did you go from, hey, buy my book, to you were number one? I don't know if you're still number one in the Amazon category, but you've held strong at number one for a long time and sold a lot of books. Can you tell us about that process?
Sure. Yeah, it was, I think marketing the book is definitely harder than writing the book. So I hustled hard. I tried to get in front of the places where I thought my audience hung out, which was running groups online and people in weight loss groups, or, just trying to find those places that people were already hanging out and being like, oh, well, here's my stories, if you're interested. And it was people like you and people in the running community that started spreading it amongst themselves that made it take off 100%. I mean, I think I got lucky that I happened to choose running as my topic because runners are so awesome, and they helped it go viral amongst themselves. So within, I think it was 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, I had a friend. I'm in Washington, D.C. I had a friend in Washington State, so across the country, tell me someone in her running group suggested my book to her. So it had traveled that fast. And it's just the power of, I think online communications, but then the power of people in groups passing things on. Just like you said, I love this, so I want to share it with someone else. That's part of what made it go. And then after that, I was able to build on the initial success and use that in my marketing language to continue it. So then I would reach out to morning shows, and I went on, a couple of different morning shows and some radio, and it was like, well, it sold this much already, and that would catch their attention, and then they would continue it. So it just kind of continues from there. But I learned a lot about the power of marketing and people sharing it amongst themselves.
Well, and this is what I love about, because you can have brilliant marketing, but if you're not real, if your story is not relatable, then it's not going to work for very long, right? Like, it's going to be hype. And What I love about the story that you just told is that someone read the book, or at least started to read the book, because I was telling people about it before I finished. My favorite part, I was quoting it. Like, my favorite part was about running, when you're in a race, it's business in the front and it's like a mullet, right? It's business in the front and party in the back. I was like,
exactly.
But the truth is, right, your marketing, what am I trying to say? If it wasn't amazingly relatable and totally real and authentic, it wouldn't have spread the way that it did. That woman in Washington wouldn't have told her friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm all over the place today because I'm just I've been wanting to talk to you for so long.
I know. I've been wanting to talk to you too. No, I agree with you. And I think that's very important. I think you have to make sure that your product matches what you're saying it is. Because like you said, if I said I have the key to getting faster and someone read my book, I would have been destroyed on the Amazon reviews. So I had an amazing publisher, and she taught us to look at marketing before we even started writing the book, and to keep that in mind throughout. So that it was, in the end, whatever we said it was delivering, we were making sure it was delivering. And so then I used my advertising language to say, you know what, there's stuff out there to teach you how to get faster and teach you training plans. This isn't it. This is a story about my journey and the ridiculous things that happened along the way, but the fact that I was able to meet my goals, and I believe you can too.
And that's what makes you so inspiring, right? That's what makes authenticity. Okay, maybe I'll just ask, why is authenticity inspiring?
I think it's important to show the good and the bad, because if someone only shows perfection, I immediately am skeptical, and I think most people are. Or it turns us off because we think, well, I'm not perfect, so I can't get there. So then you're like, well, I can't relate to that. So I think authenticity is important for that reason, because you're I'm not hiding the fact that I, have tripped and, split my pants open during a run. And like, I'm not hiding the ugly side of it, which makes it, I think, it almost gives it a hero's arc too, because then it's like there's challenge and then there's triumph, but the person on the other end can be like, oh, well, then if she, is that much of a hot mess sometimes and still succeeded, then maybe I have a chance as well. That's part of it, I think.
I completely agree. And I want to ask you about, I want to ask you about being a hot mess. So, because honestly, this is what I find so inspiring about you. And this is just as a Facebook follow. Like, what I find so inspiring about you as a Facebook follow is your willingness to share. Well, one, I love your quirky stories. Okay, Dana just posted something the other day. So if you don't follow Dana and you haven't read the book yet, you need to. But she has a thing about flossers. So do you want to tell everybody the thing about the flossers?
Sure. I should have brought one. I actually have one that I use as a prop sometimes. I didn't think about it. I've never actually used them, by the way. I have never dropped one. Those are not from me. But yeah, I started seeing those weird dental floss pics everywhere, and especially when I ran. And so I started posting about it on social media, like, why am I seeing these things everywhere? And it became like this weird connection, especially with runners. And so people around the world would start sending me photos when they saw a flosser. And so it became such a big part of my life, especially connecting me to other runners, that it ended up in my book. And it's actually on the cover of my book. It's buried in the sole of the shoe on the front cover. But so now I get people that read the book and send me photos of the flosser that they saw on their run. I'm against litter. Let me just say that. I am not a proponent of these things lying around everywhere. But it's just become this weird connection between me and other runners. And so sometimes when I'm tired in a race, I'll just start looking for flossers because I'm probably going to find one. And so, yeah, so then I continue to post about them. I see them all the time. I still see them like almost on a daily basis. So I post about them on Facebook still.
Well, which I think is funny because, gross, right? Like you put that in your mouth and then you just throw it on the ground. Like, and that was the whole thing with Dana's like, who does this? And then she's like, apparently people do it all the time, everywhere. And it did start this weird connection. Like, I don't carry my phone when I run, but if I did, I would be sending you pictures of the flossers that I see on my runs. Like, how the heck did this get here? Like, who was out on this trail flossing their teeth? But the reason I brought it up is because yesterday you posted something about, I hope this isn't the new flosser, and it was like a pile of hair that was behind you.
Yeah. I was walking home from work, no one was around, and I just looked down and there was a full head of hair, like a wig. No one around it though, just sitting there on the sidewalk. So I was like, this better not be what I start seeing everywhere. Universe and I are gonna have a talk.
But this is the kind of real fun things that I like seeing from your quirky, wonderful life. And it has endeared you to me because you are willing to share, right? You're willing to share things that are inspirational to other people, but you're also willing to share things that inspire people for no good reason, right? They inspire people just because they're like, okay, she's like me. Weird stuff happens to her. Embarrassing stuff happens to her. She's admitting she's not in shape. She's doing it even though she hasn't trained for it or whatever it is. And I really feel like part of being authentic, part of what you do so well, is when you're authentic, you give other people permission to be.
Thank you. That makes me really happy that comes through, and I hope that's true. And I've had friends tell me that it has inspired them a little, I think just to take life a little less seriously and to not be as afraid to look silly. Because I think a lot of people stop themselves from trying new things for that reason. And I just think that we're all so busy with our own mess that people are not looking at you as much as you think they are. And so by me sharing what happens to me and then laughing about it, I'm hoping that does inspire other people to be like, you know what, I'm just going to try this Zumba class or whatever it is that they want to do, and get out of my own head thinking that everyone's going to be judging me.
I have not read a post about a Zumba class from you, but I am now excited to find one. I look like a baby deer trying to salsa dance. It's not, I'm all limbs. I'm very, it doesn't go well. I think it looks amazing until I catch a glimpse in the mirror and I'm like, oh dear goodness, like frog in a blender. Like, no, it's not good, but it's fun. Well, you are inspiring me just through saying that, because that is one thing I won't do. Like I'll work out pretty hard. I'll do some stuff. I'll get out of my comfort zone in a lot of places, but the dancing type workout classes, I'm not there yet. So let's talk about.
There's always people there though, just like running. I tell people this, like people are like, oh, I'm slow, I'm going to be alone. There's always other slower runners, and there's always other people in the Zumba class that can't dance. Don't worry.
And let's talk about the slowness for a minute, because one of the things that I think, one of the ways you really inspire people is you embrace being at the back of the pack. So I'll be honest, my running experience is really different from yours. I was a competitive runner in high school and college, and was actually quite good. And I was the girl in the front of the race. And then I didn't rate. And then I coached high school and college athletes for a really long time. And it wasn't until I had my third child and I had to decide, running had been my job like forever. And it wasn't until I had my third child that I was like, do I even like this? Do I even want to do it? Right. I had never thought about it before. It was just part of my life. And, I went through my own journey and wrote my own book about that, Run Yourself Happy, in case anybody's interested. But it was after all of that I found your book, and I had already gone through the part of recognizing I can still be an athlete and not compete to win. But it wasn't until I read your book that I really understood and embraced running and racing just for fun, just for the community of it, just for the fun of it. So thank you for that.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
I'm glad. Okay, so we are rapidly running out of time, and I just feel like maybe there's something. I'm looking at the questions that I had for you. Oh, so this is what I want to know. So we talked about how your authenticity inspires others. And when I have this conversation with people, and I just sort of addressed it a little bit when I said, like, I'm not quite there with Zumba, is where does confidence play into all of this? Because what I hear a lot is like, oh, I wish I could be authentic on camera like you, but I don't have confidence. Or I wish I could whatever, but I'm not confident there. Do you have any ideas about that? I'm guessing you weren't like super confident about running.
Right. I mean, I think the more you do, the less scary trying new things is. So it's almost like a muscle that you build. And I throw myself into a lot of different things, even though it is uncomfortable, but it makes, once you experience failure in something, it becomes less scary. You kind of take the power away from it. And so, yeah, I mean, once I ran my first race and survived and made it to the end, then it was easier to do the next one. And I quickly learned that there is a community of other slower runners. So just knowing that I wasn't alone, I think was key in building confidence there. But I also, there's been so many times in my life when I've walked into a situation at work, or trying something new where I realize a lot of people are either kind of faking it till they make it, or they're also feeling scared and feeling imposter syndrome. And now that I kind of feel like I've looked behind the curtain a little bit and seen it's not all great, powerful Oz's. It's like scared little nerds behind pulling the levers. Then I'm like, it made everything a lot less intimidating to go into once I realized that, because for a while I was like, oh, I can't do that because everybody in there are experts. And that's not true most of the time.
Oh my gosh, I just want everybody to hear that. So my audience is a lot of people who have been told like how to become the expert, or they want to be the expert, or they want to be known for that one thing. And here is Dana, who is a #1 best-selling author. She has sold like hundreds of thousands of copies of her book. She's been on all kinds of morning shows. She is definitely perceived as an authority in this niche, right? In this unlikely runner niche, right? The niche of people who want to be runners, even though they don't consider themselves athletes, or I'm just going to say it again, or they are averagely fit and halfway dedicated, right?
Right.
So have you embraced the fact that you are an expert in that niche, or is what makes you an expert the fact that you don't actually see yourself as one, you see yourself as one of the many?
Yeah, no, sometimes that is really hard. I've walked onto morning shows, or I've walked into book signings and had people actually show up to have me sign their book. And that's crazy to me. Like, they're strangers. And I'm like, you're here to have me sign a copy of my book. So I definitely have had that imposter syndrome moment. What definitely helped me was something my publisher told us, because a lot of people that published with her are trying to be coaches and build coaching businesses. And so they're like, well, there's so many people in my field. What makes me different? And I feel the same way about what makes me an expert. And I think it's because the messenger matters. And so I might be one of millions of experts in running or taking up running, but no one says it quite like I do, just like no one says it quite like you do. And that voice is going to resonate with some people that another voice wouldn't. So that kind of makes it easier to feel like, okay, I have some kind of authority, only because the way that I say it just naturally is going to affect someone a different way and make them hear something for the first time.
Amen to that. So did you guys hear that? The messenger matters, like your unique voice, your authentic voice. I think what I love about, well, the way you write is freaking hilarious. Like the anecdotes that you share, so good. The fact that you like, it's when I read what you've written, I feel like I'm in your head. Like it's almost stream of consciousness. Like I'm sure your book is highly edited, but you're not editing your thoughts, right? You're not editing yourself out of your book. And I think that's the mistake so many people make. Like in this attempt to become an inspiration to other people, in an attempt to become an expert, in an attempt to become authority, they actually edit themselves out of their message. And one of the reasons why I've been so excited to interview you for so long, why I felt like I already knew you, I was so excited about sharing your book, is because the messenger, your message is important, right? But the way that you tell stories matters, right? The way that you tell stories is what connected me to you and wanted me to tell everybody about it. So hear that, people. You, the messenger, matter. Okay, Dana, we're like totally over on time. Oh, I just looked at the time of recording. It is 11:11, and I totally believe in alignment. So this is like exciting for me. Last question, which just is, what is next for you? Where are you headed?
Oh gosh, I definitely want to continue writing. I actually became a contributor to a magazine called Endurance, so I've been contributing to that regularly since the book came out. But I also have been working on a second book that is not about running, but it's the same. It's actually about my work life, because I feel like a lot of what we've talked about is the same in running as it is in life, going after your goals and being hesitant and fighting through the imposter syndrome. It's all the same. And so I have some also ridiculous, hopefully funny to other people stories about me first starting out at the White House, or me starting out in the Navy. So that's I'm hoping to pull that together into something. It's not quite there yet, though. So maybe just over the next year, but definitely want to keep writing, and then juggling the other careers in my life. I'm grateful to have a company that supports the fact that I took time off to do some morning shows, promotion, and the fact that I take time off for the Navy. So I feel fortunate to be able to juggle it all, but I'm hoping to continue to juggle it all well.
I have no doubt that you will be able to juggle it all well, because you have a sense of humor, right? Because you can turn any catastrophe, because of your perspective, right? Because you can turn any catastrophe, even when you were deployed, right? I was totally following you when you were deployed. You still, right? You still managed to find, so I have things in my life and business that I call Carrie-isms, right? I still saw the Dana-isms, right? like you came through in that. We are excited. I am excited to support you in your next book. I will totally read it. I have absolutely no doubts that it is all transferable. That's one of the things I love about running, right? Is I really believe it teaches you who you are. And teaches you it reveals your character. And the beauty, and you guys have to read Dana's book, because she talks about, it doesn't just reveal your character, right? When you're suffering alongside someone, it reveals their character too. And that's the beauty of like finding community sort of in our vulnerability, in our pain, in our, embarrassing, sweaty, dirty. Dana did some Ragnar races and like middle of the night craziness, right? We find other amazing human souls that all we have in common is that we happen to be running the same race, who are willing to reach out and help or encourage or uplift. Okay, I got off on a tangent and we have to go. So Dana Ayers, thank you for being here. Do you want to give us links or places we can go? I do have anybody who's watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast. All of Dana's info is in the show notes, but you want to tell people where they can find you, Dana?
Sure. Amazon's the best place to buy copies. So it's called Confessions of an Unlikely Runner. I'm Dana Ayers, and yeah, Amazon's the best. My website's dcdana.com, so I'll post updates there of any new books. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, Carrie, and thanks for helping to promote the book. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're amazing. You're lovely. You're funny. And this, you guys, this is important too, is I will happily promote Dana in whatever she does next because she's real and authentic and amazing. And she doesn't even have to ask because she's been an inspiration to me just by being who she is. So I hope there's a lesson in that for all of you. Dana, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see everybody next time on the next Carrie Roldan show.
Thanks. Bye.